Beijing turns these industrial strengths into influence. It offers financing, infrastructure, and supply chains. It locks countries into Chinese-made systems. It shows governments that America brings volatility while China brings equipment, credit, and continuity. From 2000 to 2025, Beijing financed projects and ports in 90 countries around the world. Last month, Beijing even offered Taiwan a deal of sorts. Accept peaceful reunification, and the mainland will guarantee your energy security. China's next expansion of influence is crucial. Xi recently made explicit Beijing's ambition to turn the renminbi into a global reserve currency. One former official explained how China would steadily expand its bond market and financial infrastructure so that if investors came to see America as risky, they would have an alternative. Recent weeks have brought an obscure but ominous sign. Institutions like the World Bank and the European Investment Bank have been able to issue debt at rates essentially as low as those offered by U.S. Treasuries. This threatens to end what has been called America's exorbitant privilege of having the world's reserve currency. If that erodes, America will get a very painful shock when its government and its households can no longer borrow so much so cheaply. China is using this moment to burnish its reputation, but mostly to build its power. If the correlation of forces moves steadily in its favor, if America continues to squander its global influence, one day Beijing might decide that after all, it does want to take on the mantle of the world's leading power. And at that point, it will be too late for Washington to do anything about it.
This is the most dangerous moment for American power, and almost nobody in Washington is paying attention. Zakaria mentions something that sounds obscure, but is actually ominous. Institutions like the World Bank and the European Investment Bank can now issue debt at rates essentially as low as U.S. Treasuries. This threatens what he calls America's exorbitant privilege, the ability to borrow cheaply because the dollar is the world's reserve currency. Let me explain why this matters. For decades, the US dollar has been the global reserve currency. That means every country needs dollars. Every oil transaction is priced in dollars. Every major investment is denominated in dollars. This gives America an enormous advantage. They can print money, and the world has to accept it. They can borrow cheaply, and the world has to lend them. But that privilege is eroding. According to recent data, the yuan's share of global payments has been steadily rising, reaching 3.1% by February of 2026, and jumping to 8% in global trade finance. Meanwhile, the dollar's share of global reserve has collapsed from 72.7% in 2001 to just 56.77% by the end of 2025, a 16-point drop in a quarter century. China is expanding its bond market and financial infrastructure, so investors see America as risky and have an alternative. As Zakaria points out, they're offering to settle oil and commodity trades in yuan instead of dollars. When the dollar loses its reserve currency status, and Zakaria is right that it will, America will get a very painful shock, as he puts it. The government and households can no longer borrow so much, so cheaply. Interest rates spike, inflation returns. The standard of living for ordinary Americans collapses. And who benefits? China, because the yuan becomes the new reserve currency, because Chinese bonds become the safe haven, because the world's wealth flows to Beijing instead of Washington. The data is already showing this shift. The yuan is increasingly being used for international settlements, and countries are actively diversifying away from dollar reserves. Central banks are accumulating yuan at unprecedented rates. Cross-border yuan settlements hit 1.35 trillion yuan in March 2026 alone, a 63% increase from February. Yuan-denominated loans surged 8.6 trillion yuan in Q1 of 2026 to a total of 280.51 trillion yuan. That's 41 trillion in yuan-based credit. The petrodollar is dying in real time. The Trump administration is accelerating this process by making the dollar less reliable. The dollar index has already fallen 2% in 2026 alone. following a 9% decline in 2025. Every time Trump threatens to weaponize the dollar, every time he imposes unilateral sanctions, every time he acts unpredictably, he's convincing the world that the dollar is risky. He's pushing countries towards the yuan. Central banks are responding by buying gold at record rates. 15 consecutive months of gold accumulation by the Chinese central bank alone, a hedge against the dollar's collapse. This is the long game. This is why China isn't celebrating American chaos. They don't need to. They're just waiting for America to finish destroying itself. Now, Zakaria ends with the most important warning. If the correlation of forces moves steadily in China's favor, and it is, if America continues to squander its global influence, and it is, then one day China might decide it wants to take on the mantle of the world's leading power. And at that point, it will be too late for Washington to do anything about it. He says that like it's a bad thing. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer every single day. Every bomb dropped in the Middle East, every tariff imposed on Chinese goods, every threat to weaponize the dollar, every reckless policy decision, they all accelerate the transition. The Trump administration thinks it's containing China. What it's actually doing is ensuring China's victory, and the data proves it. If you got any value out of this video, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and leave a comment below telling me what you think happens when the dollar loses its reserve currency status. As usual guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.